So this is the last episode of RWBY until Volume 6 comes out later on. So, this volume has been a mixed bag. It's had a lot of, on-the-fence people when it comes to this season. I've been on both sides. There's been episodes I've enjoyed and I loved seeing, and there's been episodes that I just did not like at all. And I feel like what I just said there probably can go to many. Many could possibly relate to what I just said, because it's true. This volume has had some good things and some bad things. Many might say that it has more bad than good, but that's debatable. But overall, though, this is the final episode of Volume 5. And so, to begin, let's talk about one of the big things that is a problem with this volume. Let's get the bad out of the way before I talk about the good. Number one of the big things that many have been very disappointed with this episode, the last episode, and also all of the other episodes throughout this volume, it's very apparent that Rooster Teeth has still yet to really recover since Monty, which it does make sense. Monty was like the man that, led the charge with this series, and so it does make sense that with him being gone, his influence, it would show signs of, like, the series, having cracks and problems, and we have started to know this quite a bit. We noticed that, the series is showing a lot of, production issues, or when it comes to fights, and in this case, there was a lot of scenes throughout this episode, or lack of scenes, where we didn't really get to see any fighting at all. Now, as I've already covered in previous episode reviews of RWBY, fighting is not everything, okay? When I watch a series, I don't expect fighting every single episode. I don't expect a series just to entirely focus on fighting, because at the end of the day, this is also a story. It has a story, it has characters, characterization, development. We need time for that. We can't just have, characters going at each other, beating the crap out of each other. That's not what a series is about. And even though this is a Rooster Teeth show, and they do focus on action quite a bit. I mean, if you've ever seen their other stuff, then you can agree with me that, yes, they do have a lot of action. And I can see why many would be disappointed with this season, because it did lack a lot. I mean, there were so many certain scenes throughout this, season, to where you had this fight being hyped up, like, for instance, Hazel, perfect example. Hazel's character and all that, his backstory, and then how he was apparently fighting everyone, like Ruby, Weiss, and all of them. Apparently, all of that was, majority of it was off screen. We didn't really even get to see it much. Like, a lot of fights, not just his fight, but a lot of fights throughout this volume was off screen. We didn't really get to see it. We just saw characters change positions a little bit, or characters were monologuing to each other, and while the villains were not doing nothing, they were just sitting in the background. I mean, there was just a lot of weird scenes and all that. And it felt like Rooster Teeth was just trying to avoid fighting altogether. It was like they were avoiding showing any action. They were just trying to do it in a little amount of action as possible. And it looks like the only decent fight throughout this entire volume actually is probably the Raven and Cinder fight. I think that in terms of this volume is probably the best. Besides the chase scene with Weiss, fighting off the bees and stuff, that's the only scene I think besides the Raven and Cinder fight that was relatively good from this volume that just personally stands out to me. So it's kind of sad, really. I mean, what RWBY is kind of known for, besides its story, obviously, it's its action. It's a big thing of this series, and it seemed like Rooster Teeth was really trying to avoid showing much action this season, which was, like I said, very disappointing. Even though I know they can't always focus on it, it just, like, a lot of it just kept repeating to where they were skipping scenes and stuff, and they just didn't want to show anything, and I'm like, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. But, anyways, let's talk about one thing that, many have been discussing, and I discussed too in my last review, and it also is very relevant thanks to this final episode, is Adam and his role in the story. Adam is a character that has been built up for volumes now, many, many volumes, and he's a character I was always fascinated about. I liked his design, I liked his role in the story, and I liked his, interaction with Blake, and what also happened to Yang as well. There's a lot of history there, and I always thought, we were going to have this effort confrontation between these characters with Adam, and we did finally have that confrontation, but it wasn't epic, it wasn't anything amazing, which it just was like more of a depressing scene, and that was about it, because Adam, he is no longer the leader of the White Fang. This episode effectively means that Adam no longer has an army. He no longer is leading the White Fang. And even though it's still explained that he's obviously stronger than Blake and Yang and all of them, because if they were to chase after him into the woods, he would pick them off. That's his style. regardless of him being stronger than them or not, the fact is that he no longer will have that big of a presence or weight, since he won't be leading the Faunus in the next upcoming volumes, because the Faunus won't follow him anymore, because their leader left them. So Adam effectively has been nerfed quite a bit. He no longer has that, like, backing anymore, which is kind of disappointing. It doesn't look like we're going to have that epic confrontation with, you know, the White Fang against Blake and all of them. It doesn't look that. It was more of, like, the police force coming in, arresting, you know, different members of the White Fang, and then Adam running off, and then that was about it. And then don't even get me started on how many of the forces of the White Fang, like, that was it. That's all the forces of the White Fang. There should have been a lot more than that. I mean, from all the buildup we've had over these volumes of RWBY, but I'll save that for another time. Basically, though, the entire Adam stuff I was disappointed with, because even though he didn't get cuffed, he didn't get sent to prison or anything like that, that does mean we'll have another confrontation with him. It's just like the way he was done in this episode in the last, I don't like how Rooster Teeth handled that, especially for something that was a very big point of the series that many fans have been looking forward to for years now, and just the way it was handled, I felt like it just is like, really, that's it? I mean, the way he just, you know, runs off and all, he runs away and stuff, and you just see how he basically gets jobs, I'm like, I'm not a fan of that. Now, I'm not one of those to go into the ships and stuff. I'm not one of those. I mean, I do ship characters, but that doesn't drive me to be upset with the series. I'm just going to state that real quick. But something we've been looking forward to for a while is Yang and Blake finally talking with each other, because that's been a very crucial part of the story for a while. We knew Yang had some rough feelings towards Blake. I mean, we saw this a couple of episodes back, actually, that Yang still has hard feelings towards Blake because Blake just straight up abandoned them and ran away, which correlates with how Yang feels about her mother, how, you know, Raven just ran off. There were similar feelings going on there, and I could see where Rooster Teeth was going with that. However, that convo, what we expected, like a big long conversation between Yang and Blake, it didn't happen. Now, I know many of you are probably already topping in the comments and stuff like, whoa, Chibi. They just met up. There's a possibility when Volume 6 begins, they will have their full-on episode of dialogue. Yes, that's probably going to happen. But the thing is, though, the entirety of the last volume, ever since the end of Volume 3 and all that, last volume and this volume has been building up for these two to meet up and have a convo. You'd think since this is the finale of Volume 5, Rooster Teeth would have had more time and put it in for that. Instead, we had other irrelevant scenes that didn't really matter. Some rehash scenes, like, for instance, with the White Fang at the beginning of the episode, that I'm like, are you serious right now? Like, there's some scenes that just rehashed we didn't really need. They could have fit in a little bit of dialogue between Yang and Blake, but that wasn't done at all, and so I was a little bit upset with that. I'm like, something that's been very important. I mean, these are your main characters. Yang and Blake are very important. You're not even going to give them a conversation because you were willing to do that for, you know, Yang, RWBY, and Weiss, but you're not going to do it for Blake? I'm like, come on now. Don't do Blake and Yang's, you know, character relationship like that. That's just like, what? So I was upset with that. Not gonna lie, I was a little bit upset with that. I figured we would have something like that, but we didn't get that at all. That was just, I guess, my personal expectations. They weren't met there, but yeah, it might be addressed in Volume 6. They better address it because, I mean, there better be more things going on there. Just, you know, them hugging and all that at the end and being, you know, happy and smiling, that should not end the, like, issues between Yang and Blake. Because Yang, she just had something very bad happen to her. Her mother basically abandoned her once again, which I'll get into in a moment. But her mother basically abandoned her once again, and that probably reopened the wound to what Blake did to her. So I don't think that issue they had between each other, that abandonment issue that Yang felt towards Blake, that should just disappear. I feel like that needs to be addressed. That shouldn't just be wrote off and swept under the rug. I do hope that it's not gone, because that would be kind of bad if it was. Anyways, I guess, for the most part, there was a lot of bad with this volume, but even though there was a lot of bad, there is some good, and so let's talk about that. Number one, let's talk about the abandonment in that final convo with Yang and Raven. That was a very sad scene. And I will give props to Rooster Teeth for the voice acting and all of that was done in that moment. It was really good. It was a really, really good scene. If you didn't understand the message there when Yang started to cry when she grabbed the relic, the lantern relic, let me explain. When Yang grabbed the relic, she came to realization that her mother abandoned her once again, and her mother thought her life was more important than her own daughter's. For instance, to explain it in an easier way, Raven's a coward. That's what Yang basically said. You're a coward, which we kind of already knew. We saw hints of this already that, Raven was she was really scared of Salem. And when she says this, she's like, look, if you grab the relic, you're gonna be a target for Salem. Salem's gonna come after you because you have a relic. You're a spring maiden and all that. She's gonna target you. You're gonna be an even bigger target. And if you grab the relic, so you should let me grab the relic, and that would mean that I would be the target and you won't be. And at first glance, when you see this, it looks like okay, that makes sense. But when you really take a moment to think about it, Raven, as the mother of Yang, did not decide to take it upon herself to grab the relic and hold that burden, because she was wanting to protect and save her own life than protect her own daughter's. That's the sad part there. Basically, Raven decided to abandon her daughter for her own well-being, which, when you think of parents and stuff, usually parents are willing to lay down their life for their child, but it seems like Raven doesn't want to do that. And so, Yang came to that realization at the end of the episode. It's like, my mother just straight up abandoned me, not once, but twice now, and she basically admitted that my life is not worth protecting over her. So, that's sad. It's a really sad scene. I will give Rooster Teeth that. That was a really good scene with Yang and Raven. Probably one of the best scenes of this volume 5 of, RWBY. It was truly a good moment. But let's talk about the Emerald stuff for a second. So, Emerald is, yeah, she got, some form of, mini power-up. I mean, she showed an, illusion to multiple people, and it was Salem, which was a very creepy segment. Not gonna lie, that was a really creepy segment of the episode, and I'm like, whoa! Emerald most likely is gonna be very important because of that at the end of the episode. She's gonna be very important in Volume 6, so I am looking forward to more Emerald, because it does look like there's more going on there than what we actually know of now because of how she acted when Cinder could potentially be dead. Let's talk about that for a second, actually. So, Cinder. I've already said my piece in my last review. I doubt Cinder is dead. We didn't hear any crashing sound. We didn't see a body. I mean, we already saw Raven basically break out of ice. So, I mean, when you really think about it, there's just no way that Cinder is dead. And especially having, a grim limb and all that, I just don't think she's gone. I just feel like she'll come back with, an extra limb or something. I like an extra grim attachment, which would be really cool. It would add more to her character. I just don't think right now she is dead. I mean, if she was dead, for a fact, RWBY most likely would have gotten, the Fallen Maiden's power. Because Cinder was always focused on RWBY, so RWBY should have got it, or Raven should have got it, which we didn't see that implied at all. So, yeah, I just basically want to say that I doubt, Cinder is gone. I don't think Cinder is dead, but if Cinder is dead, that's kind of disappointing in a way, because that would mean that we would never have that confrontation between RWBY and Cinder ever again, which, like I said, that's a big thing, and I really hope she is not gone, because I want to see that. Speaking of RWBY, the Silver Eyes. Silver Eyes were constantly hinted throughout this volume of RWBY, and we didn't get any explanation at all to it, which was very disappointing. I was very disappointed with that. I was very disappointed that RWBY's Silver Eyes popped up again, a couple episodes back, but they were very irrelevant and all that. They just popped up for basically no reason, and there's no explanation for it. I'm like, really? There's no explanation at all? So, disappointed with that. I was very disappointed with how the Silver Eyes popped up, but they were just irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. There definitely needed to be at least some clarification there. Next thing to talk about, let's talk about Leo. So Leo, the Cowardly Lion, he dies this episode, which many might disagree and say it was a bad scene, but I really like that scene. And there is some things I don't like about it. There is some things which I will talk about, but I do overall like the scene, because Leo died like he was. He died like a coward. That's exactly what happened. He died like a coward. And Salem basically says, coward. And that was it of him. And the sound effects when he was dying, now that was, whoa. That was some really good sound effects by Rooster Teeth. So, props there. But, Leo, overall, the things I'm kind of disappointed with when it comes to his character is that I felt like there was more to him. I felt like, Rooster Teeth could have dived more into his character. There could have been a lot more. I mean, we didn't really know why he was really working with Salem. I mean, we do know that he was scared of Salem, but there obviously should have been more. There should have definitely been a lot more than that. Because, I mean, if he was really that big of a coward, Ozpin would have known that he would have betrayed him a lot sooner. Because if he's just that scared of Salem. So I'm a little bit disappointed with that. I really was hoping there'd be a little bit more explanation to why Leo decided to just, become a traitor. I mean, I felt like maybe Salem, was using someone as a hostage or something. That's what I assumed, but it doesn't seem to be the case because of how Leo died in this episode. Unless we find out later on, like in Volume 6, that apparently he had, like, some family member that was captured and they ended up dying too. Now, that'd be pretty dark if that did happen. But, I mean, for now, though, it just looks like Leo did everything he did because he was scared, and I felt like there could have been a little bit more characterization there for him. And that's, the same could be said for Hazel as well. Hazel, like I said, he was a really cool, interesting character and all that, and just his overall backstory felt very flat and just, like, not interesting at all. There should be a lot more there, and I'm like, really? So, yeah. I just gotta say that, this Volume 5 of RWBY, it was enjoyable, but it had a lot of problems. It did have a lot of problems, but it had its good moments as well. I do hope Rooster Teeth tackles some of these problems in Volume 6 because, number one, the big thing they need to tackle is showcasing more fights. They skipped a lot of fights this season, and it was like they were just, shifting the characters' positions around. That was basically it. We didn't really get to see much, and I do hope they try to improve upon that aspect, and I do hope they try to expand upon some characters that definitely need to have more development. For instance, Hazel, to, get a little bit more details on, like, Raven, and then also details on Leo. I mean, I'd like to get a little bit more, but overall, though, I do think it was a good volume. Besides a lot of it being bad, I do think it was an enjoyable volume. I still love the series, by the way. It just, like, hopefully some of those things are addressed in future, episodes. But I want to end it there. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like, and if you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon next to the subscribe button down below. Please be safe. Love you guys. Chibi out.